following him. They were wiretapping him. They were doing everything they possibly could to throw him out. And they were just looking for something to happen, like a drug, like maybe, he takes some drugs and they can sort of plant him with some kind of like false drug bust or whatever. So what Leon Wild said to him was his lawyer, the guy who got involved to try and keep him in the US, he said to him, look, John, if you want to stay here, what you've got to do is you have to stop messing around and hanging around with these radical politicians, right? Stop it. Just stop it all. Just put it to the back and forget about it, okay? No more speeches to the media about the Black Panthers or Nixon or Vietnam or whatever, and stop hanging around with these people. So that's why he stopped. So if you look, 1972, you notice from 1972, well, maybe 1973 to 1980, as you say, Mark. If you notice, there's virtually nothing that John Lennon talks about that's political. It's back to the music, it's back to recording, it's back to being a regular, singer, songwriter, what have you.
That's right.
Now, what happened was, on the face of it, yeah, Mark, it does look like in 1980 that he'd recorded Double Fantasy, and the songs are all about, being a dad, being a father, being a husband, and living this kind of quiet life away from the music business, which he had been doing for 5 years. Because after he got his green card in 1975, he just stopped making music and kind of backed out. But as Yoko Ono has since attested, on the week he was shot, he'd been scheduled to participate in a street demonstration, and this was in San Francisco. And this was over workers' rights. So this was his first activity of this type since the early 1970s. And there's also rumours, and I haven't been able to confirm this, but there's also rumours that he was planning to participate in anti-nuclear demonstrations and protests as well. And I've read that particular claim in a few places, but I haven't been able to confirm it, and that's a bit of a shame. But that's huge. Now, what I also didn't know until quite recently is he got his green card in 1975, his US resident alien card, in other words. But in 1981, had he survived, then he would have been eligible to take it to the next step, which would have been full US citizenship. So can you imagine, he would have got the full US citizenship, and then he'd started doing these anti-nuclear demonstrations and all these marches that he was planning, there would have been no way the Reagan and Bush would have not have been able to throw him out of the country. That would have been it. So he was taken out before that happened.
And he would have had surveillance all over him, so they would have known that was in his plans.
Yeah, exactly.
We should probably circle back round to Chapman then. And directly before this event, he'd been doing a lot of travelling around the world, ostensibly as part of this charity. Was it World Vision? Is that what it was called?
Yeah, so World Vision, and he was also part of the YMCA as well. It's all a little fuzzy. I don't know if Matt has kind of honed in on that a little bit more or not, but
you're right. It's fuzzy, isn't it?
It's very fuzzy. The whole, honestly, this whole entire subject really is.
He travelled widely, but money never seemed to be a problem.
Right. So it's not just like he, visited the normal places, Paris and London, and those kinds of. He literally went. I have a list here. He went to Tokyo, Hong Kong, Singapore, Bangkok, Delhi, Beirut, Geneva, London, Paris, Dublin. I mean, everywhere within a 3-week period, or maybe it was 6 weeks period. But like boom, 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 all right after another. Literally went and took a tour around the world, and there's no. He was like a vagabond. He didn't have money. I don't know how he afforded to do these things, but apparently they were with World Vision. But World Vision isn't in all of those places either. It's very strange.
World Vision a CIA front, do we think?
That's what it kind of seems like.
Yeah, well, the thing with the YMCA is, and World Vision, because YMCA and the World Vision thing seem to be hand in hand. Wow, yeah. What happened was, Mark David, I think I don't know where to start. Do you know that?
Yeah.
It's absolutely huge. The thing with the world trip, it's really weird because he was working as a junior employee at the time at a mental institution or a hospital. He'd been. What happened was this was about 1977, I think it was. He was going through a bit of a crisis, a kind of an emotional crisis, and he wanted to kill himself.
Programming wearing off. Sorry.
Yeah, well,
I think
exactly.
he attempted to. He attempted to kill himself. He attempted
to, yeah. Mm-hmm. He called a suicide hotline, and they put him in touch with a psychiatric social worker. And this was when he was living in Hawaii, because he'd hold a job and then he'd lose his job, and then he'd get another job and he'd lose the job. So this was in between that kind of, thing where he had a job and he decided to get another job, and he was in Hawaii by this point. It's really odd. I don't know where to start. I really don't. All right. I'll forget that for the minute. Okay, forget that for the minute. Let's start with the YMCA, because this takes us right back to the beginning of his life. Mm-hmm. He joined the YMCA when he was still kind of like in his early teens, I think.
Right.
And
in Georgia.
In Georgia, and that was through his father, apparently, who introduced him to the YMCA. And interestingly, his father, I think we should point out, was when Mark was born, he was a sergeant in the U.S. Air Force, so in Fort Worth, in Texas. So military. Okay, so I just thought I'd mention that.
Just a coincidence, nothing to worry about.
Yeah, exactly. So so we got
nothing
military dad. Yeah, exactly. So military dad introduces Mark Chapman to the YMCA, and what was going on was Mark he was a counsellor there. He had a job in the summer camp, and he would do this every year. It was like something he would do every year at the YMCA. He would be a counsellor for the summer camp for kids, and apparently he was really good at this. The kids loved him. So this was his job.
Kids nicknamed him Nemo, by the way.
Yeah, the kids nicknamed him Nemo because they loved him. He was like a Pied Piper. They absolutely loved him. But what he wanted to do, that was kind of like a part-time kind of job, and he wanted to get a full-time job with the YMCA. And the only way he could do that was to get a university degree, and he didn't have anything near that, so he had to re-enlist in college. He had to go to college. This is a few years later, so I say he joined the YMCA as a child, but when he left school, he became a camp counsellor, and he had to go back to school basically to get the qualifications that he needed to become to get a full-time job. And while he was at the YMCA, there was a program that was going on at the time, and I think it's still going now. It's a YMCA program, and it's called ICCP Abroad. It's an international camp counselor program which, quote unquote, works side by side with other local young men of a host country as counselors in a camp or camp-like setting. So it's an international thing. The YMCA basically is a worldwide youth organization. It's Christian heavy, and Mark David Chapman is said to have been a very dedicated Christian, young Christian. And it stands for Young Men's Christian Association. It's one of those non-governmental organizations, an NGO. It's got bases and links to about 120 countries across the world, and it has youth hostels where members of the YMCA can stay, and it does quote unquote humanitarian works around the world. So this is what Mark David Chapman was getting involved with regards to this ICCP Abroad initiative in conjunction with the YMCA. And he could have picked any country in the world, okay? And this was in 1975, so he was 20 years old. He could have picked any country in the world to go to, okay, to do this. He could have gone somewhere nice and hot and warm and sunny and beautiful and lovely. And where does he pick? He picks Beirut, the capital of Lebanon, which at that time was going through some bloody battles.
Yes.
It's a real CIA stronghold, though, Beirut.
Well, exactly. This is the thing. Why would he choose Beirut. It's like a couple of researchers I've looked at have said, look, Mark David Chapman was a born-again Christian, okay? He was a young born-again Christian. So why didn't he choose the Holy Land? If he wanted to go to the Middle East, why didn't he go to the Holy Land and go to Jerusalem or Bethlehem or Nazareth? Why did he choose this very volatile and violent part of the world to go and take part in this program with the YMCA? Yeah, Mark, as you say, CIA. There's a former case officer for the CIA who's made links between YMCA and the CIA. I hope I get his name right. His name is Philip Agee, A-G-E-E. He's a former case officer for the CIA. He was between 1957 to 68, and he's a whistleblower, basically. And he wrote a book titled Inside the Company CIA Diary, in which he notes, his own personal experiences whilst working for the agency. And he claims that the YMCA was of use to the CIA because it was, in his words, and I'm paraphrasing here, it was, in his words, an advantageous venue in which to widen the agency's range of contacts and potential agents through it. And there's another source I've come across, an author by the name of Bob Woodward. He's a veteran US investigative journalist for the Washington Post.
He's the Watergate
and in
guy,
his book, yes, you're right. Actually, I didn't realise until you said, yeah, that's right. Yeah, one of the investigators of that. And in his book, Veil: The Secret Wars of the CIA, 1981 to 87, he claims that in 1976, so this is around the time that Mark David Chapman was there, the CIA was maintaining a large presence in Beirut. That's what was going on there. That's
Miles Copeland was based in Beirut as well, who's the father of Stuart Copeland from The Police. And all three of his sons were born in Beirut, and they all went on to have roles in the music industry. So, Copeland was a legendary CIA operative working out of Beirut.
Indeed. Wow. Cool. And finally, with regards to this, in the book John Lennon, Life, Times and Assassination by Phil Strongman, I found another reference to Beirut and the CIA. It says Beirut was a major base for CIA and US naval intelligence right up until the 1980s. Beirut was also for years said to have been home to one of the CIA's top secret assassination training camps.
Oh boy!
So that's according to Phil Strongman. And he was only there for a week, and then a civil war broke out, so he had to come back. And then he came back, and then he got involved with Vietnamese refugees, and I think this is where the World Vision link comes in. I'm just looking at my notes here. Boy, if this was TV and you saw the amount of notes I've had to prepare, it's a huge subject. Absolutely huge.
It's a mess. So
wow.
With World Vision, he worked with David Moore. David Moore was like his. I think he was kind of like a gopher for David Moore, or like a personal assistant type thing. It's not exactly clear, but David Moore was the one around, and with Mark David Chapman, they met high-ranking government officials. I think they even met Gerald Ford at one point. And
he shook his hand, didn't he?
Right. Yes, exactly. And Ford, of course, was also had an attempted assassination as well by Squeaky Fromm from the Manson family. So it's kind of an interesting little segue there. We don't have to get into that. But through David Moore and World Vision, it seems like that somehow that's how they got their the money for all that traveling. They seem to travel together, is kind of what I'm gathering from that. And so David Moore was some kind of a ranking official within the World Vision team there. But again, it's so difficult to really find anything of substance. And it seems like you go from one article to another, and they all have different information. So it's really difficult to discern what is accurate and what is not in a lot of these different ins and outs.
Yeah,
But
I mean, with regards to the World Vision thing, I mean, Desiree, I don't know if you found this, and Mark,